Hi everybody, it's Nicole. I'm here with another video for Vicky Booten Design Team. Today I'm going to talk all about clean mixed media. To be honest, this is kind of my preference in the whole mixed media thing because I don't like getting dirty. So I really love what I'm going to do today is really one of my favorite techniques, and that is to use Vicky's art crayons to create some different backgrounds and then use them in a clean way on my scrapbook page. So I actually have some watered down pink and red art crayon. And as you can see, I'm using one of her embossing folders to stamp into that watered down art crayon to create that polka dot design. So that's the first way that I really love. I love the stamping technique. It's really easy to do. It kind of gives you that distressed sort of feel. I'm going to do it here twice with the embossing folders just because I love those patterns myself. The floral doesn't turn out quite as good because it is a little more intricate, but you definitely get that floral vibe once it all kind of sets in place and dries. But I do love the polka dot. The polka dot's kind of my favorite. So I'm going to clean that up, and I'm just choosing kind of a bit of a, I don't want to say neutral palette, but I'm using green and pinks and some blacks and grays. I'm not adding in tons more color than that. But I'm going to do the same thing here now with a stencil instead of the embossing folder, and just kiss that into the art crayon on the transparency there, and then add a little bit of blotches just for fun, and then lightly dab that off with a paper towel, and then you can see you kind of get that positive image from what's in that stencil. So I'm going to do the same thing here with some gray and this fun geometric stencil here I have from Storyteller. I think this one was from Storyteller. And again, you just kiss that into your background there and then dab it in, rub it off, and you get kind of the remaining image. Depending on how fine that stencil is will really depend on how much of the pattern you pick up. You can see it's kind of dried a little bit now. I'm going to go in and just lightly add a few splatters just to fill in some of the white area in my background. And then I'm going to do the same thing with all four of the colors. So a little bit with the green, there's my puppy, a little bit with the gray, and then some of the black as well. So I'm going to continue that for all four colors. I'm going to roll this off with my paper towel just to kind of dab off and make sure everything's dry. And then I decided I really had kind of a lot of white space still left on the background of the foundations paper. So I thought I would just kind of run the edges through some watered down art crayon just to kind of fill in, make it, I don't know, have like a secondary layer to it. So I'm just really watering down with some same colors again and just kind of dragging my edges of my paper almost like you would with an ink pad on the edge of a paper. So I'm going to do that with all four of the colors. I apologize because I kind of did it there close to the edge where my transparency was and not so much in the center of my camera, so I do apologize for that. But you can see the idea. I'm not really making this perfect. I'm just kind of dragging it along that art crayon and then using my water down paintbrush there to kind of drag that color along all of the edges. So the pink I think turns out actually my favorite out of all of them because you can really see the difference between those polka dots, and there was a lot of white area. I think I did go a little overboard, as you'll see here with the black. There was quite a nice lack of color there that looked really nice, and I think I went a little too crazy with the black, and luckily it didn't really matter, but it does add a little extra for what we're going to do later, but you can see it's kind of a bit of a blobby mess there. So, but that's okay for what I'm going to use these for. Mistakes are totally fine. So if you're new to mixed media and you're just trying to figure out where you fit in and you're playing around and making little practice sheets like this, what we're going to do with them is actually quite perfect for that, because you can take something kind of not so nice looking and make it look better with what we're going to do. So I'm just making sure these are all nice and dry. I like to have my laminator set up on the side here, and just I run each of these through as they dry just to make sure they're not curved. I thought about using some stencils over top of these to, I will do it here with the pink. I decided to just take my stencil brush with some pink art crayon and then dust that over to kind of get like a tone on tone. But I realized I was really kind of missing out on that background, so I left it. And then I found these extra sheets I had laying around that I had used stencils with the matte acrylic gel of Vicky's. They had dried, and they kind of messed them up because I thought they were dry. I ran them through my laminator, and as you can see, kind of in the middle of the screen there's like some bits of paper and stuff that got stuck to it. So they're not super perfect, but I thought for something like this, they'll work out fine as a to use a leftover sort of thing. So I'm just using Vicky's kissing technique and adding that over top of that stenciled background with the same colors that I had done with the stenciling before. Again, these are not perfectly done because the actual matte acrylic gel, when you let it sit and dry and you're patient, it dries really nice. But if you're impatient like me and you run it through a laminator to try to speed up the last like 10 minutes of drying, it will melt, and it's like putting a crayon through the laminator. It will melt all that product again. So that's kind of what happened to me. But because I'm going to be punching these out, I figure some of those nasty pieces that I have on there, I'm not going to use. So I'm not super worried about that part. So I'm just using the kissing technique, and what will happen is once this art crayon dries off, I'm going to get my heat gun and help that speed it along a little bit. You can actually take a paper towel or a baby wipe and rub over that gelled background, and it will kind of resist the art crayon. So you'll kind of get the white stencil area from the matte acrylic gel, and then you'll have the rest will be your colorful design. So I'm just going to try to hurry these up and speed them up so they dry better so that we can move on to the next piece. But it's good if you're just playing around and trying different products and colors and techniques, that you save those pieces, because then when you go to do a project like this one, you have it all kind of ready to go, and it's, you don't have to super be patient. That is the one, I think, drawback, which I'm not a patient person, and with mixed media you do have to have some patience. So now I have all my pieces. They're all dry. They're all ready to go. I just need to determine what I'm going to do here. So I thought I'm going to grab my favorite 2-inch punch, and I'm going to make use of that by punching out all the different bits I can from each of these squares. And this is where, if you've messed something up in the smaller space, you're not going to be able to tell. So it's good to really just punch them down, and you can kind of ignore the pieces that you don't like, or even some of the nasty stuff that you've done actually looks better when you only use part of it in a punch shape. So I'm going to punch out as many as I can from each piece. And with the black, you'll see that even that overlapped kind of mushy area I get to about now looks quite nice when you punch it out into a circle, because you have that kind of variation from the stencil as well as the kissing technique. So don't throw out those things you've done with mixed media that you think, oh gosh, this is horrible, because I feel like when you punch it or cut it with your die cutter, it actually kind of rescues it from maybe the too much. If you did too much, I feel like it rescues it, and you can really make a lot of use out of it. So I have a lot of circles here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some foam to the back of each of my photos, which I've done so. And these photos are neutral because I'm going to use all these colors here on the bottom. So I want to keep the photos kind of neutral. And I'm just trying to figure out my initial layer of color underneath that row of photos. And it looks like everything's crooked, but I think it's just the angle of my camera in the holder. So I promise you those photos are straight, but it just looks like that from the angle. And then I'm just making a grid with those papers underneath the photos there. So I started at the top by the pictures, mostly to get the initial row of pattern and color. But what I really should have done is start along the bottom edge. As you see, I kind of push everything up and then really just make my row along the bottom edge. Because it's a 2-inch punch and this is a 12 by 12 page, it's pretty easy to, you don't have to line anything up really weird with a ruler or anything. You just need to line those side by side all across the bottom edge of the paper, obviously. And then you get your 12 by 12 row, and then you just build from there. So I do like to line them up kind of ahead of time and get an eye balance for them, so that I know I don't have too many greens together or pinks. I do like to do that, but you don't have to. I would not start at that top row there and build my way down. I would definitely, as I did here, start from the bottom and work my way up. All right, so now that I have these on here, it looks pretty good, but right now everything looks kind of a little bit plain, so I'm going to go off camera and add a bunch of sewing to those circles. As you can see, I just went through each row and really just did crisscross and all the way wavy, not at all being perfect in my stitching. I really wanted to add that whimsical kind of stitchy feel. And now I wanted to add some paper to the top of the layout just to add a little bit more color and some more movement too. So I'm grabbing through my sheets here from Storyteller, and I have a couple scraps I'm going to use. So I'm going to stick with this rainbow and this black paper here. I love this black kind of tile tone on tone paper. So I'm going to just cut down a thin strip of each, And that's going to fit in nicely across the top of my layout there. I'm going to use this torn edge because I think that'll be a nice complement to those circles in the bottom. And I think the best way to line it up is just to get that rainbow strip on there and then tuck the black one kind of underneath. Play around with it a little bit to make sure it gets in there and kind of ripping it off. So it's just, there's no good way sometimes to get these things done. But I think if I put the rainbow down and then add the torn little skinnier strip underneath, there we go. I'm going to add just a quick zip through my sewing machine to set that down in place. And that stitching will go along with the stitching I have on the bottom. So now I'm going to stick my photos down and try to line these up as evenly as I can with a ruler. I'm going to leave a little bit of room though above the photos because I like to tuck things up under the photos on the top edge, and I do want to overlap those circles on the bottom so that I don't see the top of the circles. It's just, I don't know, something I thought was important, so I wanted to kind of cover some of that up, so I'm just using my ruler to make sure that's all straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to start working on my title. So here's where I'm going to grab a whole bunch of different sorts of embellishments from Storyteller. I love these puffy stickers, and I thought this Smile Often title that's in there would be perfect for this page. I thought about just sticking it here down on the circles, but I thought a nice layer of vellum underneath that would just be a nice complement. So I actually just use a coffee cup here I have that I keep my watercolor water in, and trim that down and add that puffy sticker to the top of it. And I will go around really quickly too on my sewing machine with that one. So it's gonna let me have that same circular texture like I have with the mixed media, but it's gonna kind of just add a light thin barrier behind the title to give it a different break on the page. Because I'm gonna tuck that in here underneath my photos. And now I think it's just all the little fun bits that we want to add to the page. I'm going to use a lot of these puffy stickers. I really love these, so I thought these numbers were cool. I haven't used these yet, so I thought I'll put a few of these, one on each photo in the open areas. Kind of didn't like the 4 in that top corner, so you'll see I'm going to move that down to the bottom right. I'm going to do the same thing with the 2 just to kind of keep it, up and down, up and down. But those are a fun, really fun script number. I like those. And now I'm going to grab the stickers because I think these are great to add to layer behind photos and things like that. So I'm going to do that here just to fill in a little bit of that top area along the top of the photos as well, and kind of create some, I'm going to say merging between the title and the rest of the page so that it kind of fills in the gaps and makes things just line up a little smoother. I decided to take off that little photo tab and use these word sentiments instead. I kind of like how those look. Just tucked underneath those little numbers there. So I'm going to move this pink arrow just slightly. And I wanted to make sure my S from the Smile Often wasn't stuck underneath my photo, so I lifted that up. I really love this black text sentiment that's in the washi tape from Storyteller, so I just ripped off a piece of that and added that underneath and tucked it under the heart, so that kind of like keeps that whole layer thing together. I grabbed a different pack I had of the puffy stickers because I wanted to grab more of the hearts and the circles that are in there. This is a really good pack because it's like you get a whole package of you get puffy stickers, but you also get like enamel dots essentially as well. So you kind of have, it's like you have 2 different sorts of embellishments in one. There's definitely a lot of good stuff jammed together into this one 9x12, I think is the size sticker pack. So I'm going to use a lot of these little puffy circles and dots and hearts to fill in tone on those circles that I had made on the bottom of the page. I'm just going to use kind of a mixture of the hearts and the circles, and again just following along in the color groupings. And I love this fun arrow, so I'm going to add that to my title, and I think that pretty much is where we end up with this one. I think, oh, you know what, I'm wrong. I went back to my smaller sticker book and used my foam and wanted to add some of this heart here, and there's actually some really good washi stickers in here that I thought about using on my photos as well, but I'd already used the sentiments, so I ended up adding a few of these stickers. This sticker book is a little bit smaller, so some of the items are good to add at the end because the stickers are kind of a bit of a smaller size. They're great for like traveler notebook or planner spreads if you do that sort of project. They're good for that too. So I'm going to layer a few of these on. And I think that's where I need to tell myself to stop. So here's some of that layering you can see I did with all the different embellishments. I really love this technique with the different mixed media and punching it out, and how easy it is to do. It's a great way to use your leftovers, an easy way to kind of test out your techniques if you're just learning. And so that's my take on mixed media in a clean and simple way. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.